Welcome, everybody, to Podcasts and Players, the only show where you get to hear me and this particular guest talking in the same space. If that's something that you are into, then you're in the right place. This guest is someone who I think needs no introduction, but I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't do that, so we're going to do that. He is the DM for the infamous Fool's Gold campaign. He is a successful businessman and also a very nice guy and a new Twitch streamer as well. Please give it up for Felix.
Hey, how's it going? That was one hell of an introduction. Thank you. I'm flattered.
Yeah, that was all right off the cuff. That was all just from the top of my brain. And there's more about you. We're only scratching the surface.
Oh gosh. Yeah, there's a lot.
So how we were about to get into the pleasantries, and then I was like, no, save it for the podcast, save it for the podcast. So let's do that now. How are you doing, Felix? How's your Saturday?
I'm doing quite well. Yeah, I'm and it's a nice lazy day. This is really my highlight of the day. Otherwise, I'm going to be a nice lazy potato today. But yeah, it was funny. I was trying to start the pleasantries with Shane. He was like, "No, save it. We're not doing this right now."
I wasn't that harsh. I was just like, "Wait a minute. This could be good for the content."
Yeah. But yeah, it's been a nice Saturday. I mean, how about yourself? How's it been going?
Well, I did mention I woke up a little late today because yesterday wasn't very productive. Hopefully by the time this airs, I will be finished with a commission that I've been working on. It's been taking a little while. I'm actually very close to finish. I got like most of it done.
Nice.
Yeah, so that's feeling pretty good. But this morning, I'm starting a Curse of Strahd campaign for some other people who I've also had on the podcast. People that some of my listeners might recognize, like Ink, Eldritch Sugar, Vitamin Dieter, Fel the Leb, Tabaxi Cafe. We are going to be doing a Curse of Strahd game. And as y'all know, I love Curse of Strahd. But I wanted to do some tweaks, and so I've got some homebrew rules that I've been like cooking up.
I'm excited to see that.
Yeah, we could. I typically my formula is I ask a bunch of questions about my guests, but let's shake it up today. Let's start with this, and then we can kind of get into the more about you stuff after, if that's okay. Is that all right?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So let's just start with. Here's what I decided to do. So this is a momentous occasion because I'm getting into DMing after being a player for so long. All my other podcasts, I keep talking about how, I'm spoiled because I'm just a player all the time. And the game kind of bores me now. And it's like, I need to get off my little high horse and get back into the driver's seat. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I think this is going to be good for me as a person to just have to deal with the shenanigans of other players and be a DM for a bit.
Totally. Yeah, I got to suffer like the rest of us. I have to say, I haven't been DMing for quite a few months now, which is sad. That's been. I was going to
say it must feel like a nice reprieve, but at the same time, I would feel sad too.
Yeah, it's a double-edged sword. It's like, this is a nice break, and then after 1 week, it's like, I miss D&D. This is enough. No more break.
Didn't take long.
No.
Yeah, like I am playing right now in 5 games.
Holy shit.
Yeah, it's a lot. One's Ghost of Saltmarsh. One is Mythical Odysseys of Theros. One is a homebrew game run by Captain Cheeky called Antumbra Echoes the Eclipse, which you can see on Mondays. It's a stream game. Woo. I'm in another stream game. It's a Pathfinder 2nd edition game called Here's a Shadow Valley, I think. It was the Fall of Plaguestone, but that was the adventure path. We finished that, and then we kind of have a base that we renamed Shadow Valley. So that's on Fridays on the Bard's Playhouse that people can check out.
I'm definitely going to go check it out.
And the last game I play is with Puffin Forrest, actually, who's the DM. It's a Star Wars 5e game, and we just play that on Roll20, and that's wrapping up pretty soon. So that one's really fun. 5e Star Wars.
That sounds awesome. Yeah, what a good lineup. Man, that's a full week of D&D. I love it. I'm jealous.
Yeah, I'm ready. I'm ready to kind of close the book on a couple of these, though. And like get some of my time back. And then use that time to sort of prepare for like DMing this game, which Curse of Strahd I love, but I also want to tweak because there are things it's such a great standalone campaign. There are still some things I think could be modified, and with the new Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft that came out, and the fact that I've been kind of amassing. I also have Grim Hollow too, just because everyone was advertising that. I'm like, this is right up my alley, and it's amazing, an amazing book. I think it's by Ghostfire Game. Yeah, Ghostfire Gaming did Grim Hollow. Combining elements of like these different books and some of the homebrew that I've sort of amassed over the years, I feel like I can make a really kick-ass Curse of Strahd game. I'm really excited for it.
I think you can do it, yeah. I mean, Curse of Strahd is awesome, but I think D&D shines when you start adding the homebrew spice to it.
Yeah, and it also means that, not that I suspect that my players would do this, but it means that they can't really look up anything necessarily, because I'm going to go by the book for a lot of stuff, but off the rails for a lot of other stuff. So it's like you never know what's going to be by the book or not.
Yeah, no, that's the good stuff. Got to keep players on their toes.
For sure. I don't want to brag and plug myself too much, so I'm just going to dive into like what I'm doing for this game. For the start of character creation, I decided to do point buy, but I don't care for regular point buy. It's a little too averagey, kind of like the standard array is. I like people to have a bit of freedom. Rolling is a bit too chaotic. If I was doing a traditional Pathfinder-like game where it's more game than story, then rolling for stats is a little bit easier. Honestly, I don't even mind that. I'm just kind of trying to justify the point buy, because what I ended up doing was, instead of 27 points, I raised it to 30 points. Instead of raising your scores to a max of 15 for 9 points, you can actually go 1 point further to a max of 16 for 12 points.
Yeah, all right.
And you can also, if you need to get a few points back, 8 is low, but you can go down to 7 or even 6 to get 1 point back each and make yourself really dumb or really weak or really frail, however you want to do that. It makes the characters a lot more interesting and could give you the points you need to sort of, I know it's min-maxing, but like, if it's for the purposes of a story, it can be really good. And it means that I, as a DM, have power over your weakest attributes.
Yeah, I need that ammunition. I mean, it's nice to set the point system up that way, because then, in a way, every player is kind of min-maxing. So then it's not a problem. It's actually becomes something really interesting.
I find I make a lot of characters as a player character. I like spend time making characters and then realizing with the regular point buy that I can't quite reach what I want to reach. Like, basically all of my ability score increases get used up throughout, like, and then I can't have any feats, really. Like, there's not a lot of space for that. And so by giving people the option to get the stats they need to be higher from the get-go, they can take more feats and customize their character a little bit. On that note, actually, we're starting at level 2, and everyone gets a bonus feat right out the gate. So if you were to be a variant human, you'd get 2 feats. That's pretty insane.
Yeah. Wow.
Right. Yeah. And you're starting at level 2, which is nice. So a lot of people who want to do the multi-classing can do that right away. And everyone starts with their starting equipment, as well as they can either have one common magic item, or one advanced or black powder weapon from the Grim Hollow guide.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Nice.
So you can have a gun. You can just start with a gun if you want. It's fine.
But sure, you can't have guns in D&D. I'm kidding.
Yeah, these are, I like the black powder rules. They're very, I feel like they're very balanced, and the benefits of, they have properties that other weapons don't have. So the benefits of them are pretty great for people who don't have like some sort of special thing. They can just have a gun that just works, you know?
Yeah. No, black powder is fun. It belongs in games, in my opinion. When they...
Yeah,
yeah.
So, sorry, I was going to say, like, black powder itself was invented during the medieval age. It's, the weapons are just the new ways of using it. So it's like, it's maybe not common. They could be, like, maybe known and heard about. And the people who have them, it's like, these are expensive, sort of cutting edge technology. And surely they will spread as time goes on. But for now, it's like, you've got this unique, cool weapon.
I take the same approach in my games. Like, yeah, black powder weapons, like, they're like It's like the early adopters might shell out the big bucks to have one of these things, but it's certainly not in everybody's repertoire yet.
Yeah, it's like Google Glass.
Yeah.
Right? Early adopters using it in Los Angeles, all over the place, and then, it's either going to catch or doesn't. For that, I guess it didn't really catch, but...
With that, I'm picturing just other D&D characters being snobs about it. It's like, black powder weapons. It's so like...
That's so 10 years ago.
Jeez.
Warning. I'm about to get into spoilery territory for the setting of Curse of Strahd and Ravenloft. If that is upsetting to you and you don't want your precious little baby ears to hear this, you can skip to the time code that's on the screen now. Yeah, also, Curse of Strahd is cool. For those who don't know, this is a bit spoilery, maybe, for people who are like, I don't want to know anything about it. You probably shouldn't be listening because I'm talking about the setting. Curse of Strahd is an adaptation, of the Ravenloft adventure path that was released for Advanced Dungeons & Dragons, I believe, back in the 80s. And it spawned its own setting of Ravenloft, where Barovia was like the realm, but then Ravenloft became like the code name for the Domains of Dread, which are all of these sort of demi-planes that are like isolated pocket dimensions of with dark lords in them, essentially. So like Barovia is the one that has Strahd, but the setting of Ravenloft has a bunch of others. There's Darkon, which is a cool name for a plane, and that one has Azalus Rex or something, who's like this lich who like is he wasn't a Dark Lord at first. He was like a wizard that was working for Strahd, then became a lich. They had a falling out and went to war. He lost their battle and like ran away into the mists, and Darkon was created for him, and he became a Dark Lord. And now him and Strahd wage this sort of long-term or like long-range warfare where they send their minions into each other's lands, but they themselves can't pass through, which is kind of cool.
That is cool.
Yeah, and like that's just one of the other. There's so many, and the book has like a bunch of them, which is really cool. The new one, the Van Richten's Guide. So that's kind of the idea, right? And that also means, and it's kind of confirmed in both the Curse of Strahd book and Van Richten's Guide, that the other material planes like Eberron and Spelljammer and all those places, those are also, they exist too, and people can come from those planes as well.
Ooh, all the crossovers.
Yes. So anyway, I don't want to go off too much of that. I got you here because I wanted to ask you about these house rules I made and get your opinion. You've played 5th edition a little bit, right?
Yep, I am currently in a 5e campaign, and I think I've DM'd 2 small ones for it, but I'd still consider myself a bit of a 5e baby.
That's fair. I've got a few rules that you might be familiar with, then, because a lot of these are pulled straight from Pathfinder 1e or 3.5 in this case.
Yes, good.
But the first rule is strength and encumbrance. I'm not going to be too picky about encumbrance, but I'm going to be checking everybody so often, trusting that they're keeping track of their carrying capacity because I want to use encumbrance. So basically, if someone wants to dump strength, they better be careful, is all. You know?
Yeah.
I want it to matter. Strength is a lot of times a dump stat for many. I want to be able to punish people for dumping strength. If that's what they want to do, I'm not going to just make them make lots of athletics checks all the time, because that gets a little old. I want there to be other ways that I can kind of give them some sort of thing. They could, and like, that's not even the worst thing you can do. Like, you can get a mount or something and put your stuff on a pack mule if you really want to, or have someone else carry it, or get a bag of holding at some point, you know? Like,
yeah,
there are ways you can get around that. I just want to make sure that if someone's going to be carrying heavy shit, that they better be ready, you know, to have their speed slowed and all that good stuff.
So it's funny. So this is where my, like, hey, I might still be a bit of a 5e baby kind of comes out, because my first instinct is like, wait, 5e doesn't have that?
No,
that's a homebrew
so
thing?
Wait. It does have encumbrance, but it's almost like a variant rule where, like, many DMs just don't pay attention or don't care. And it's not, I mean,
that's fair enough.
It's the same with, like, when people have ranged ammunition, and they're just like, you always have enough. They like just don't want to keep track. I understand that for the simplicity of it, and if you're just trying to get through the session, like I get it. Since this is a horror game, like a survival horror, I want to make sure that people are managing the resources. I want that to be kind of part of the game.
Oh, totally. Like gritty, like, okay, count your arrows, count your spell components and whatnot.
I'm also very forgiving about a lot of the stuff. Like we have a wizard, and this person, when they played wizards, they've had access to the whole wizard spell list in their spell book. Like they've never had to add spells to their spell book because they're homebrew games. They never do that. I'm like, that's broken as hell. Like that is... Like, wizards have the best spell lists in the game, I think. Maybe with the exception of, like, clerics. But, like, by far, they have the most spells available. You just having access to everything kind of almost defeats the point, even roleplay-wise, of a wizard searching for arcana and, like, adding spells to the book. It also makes the savant ability, the second-level ability of most subclasses, like, Like, there's no point. Because if you're never going to add spells to your book, then what's the point of having that ability, you know? So sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say in that regard, it's kind of like I'm absolutely guilty of that in my games. It's like, yeah, here's the entire spell list. Go knock yourself out.
You know, Cheeky does something where he's like, look, I'm not gonna roleplay you looking for individual scrolls and stuff. There is a vendor in town who has every spell you could ever want from levels 1 to 2 that you can just add as long as you pay the gold cost for it. And I'm like,
that's fair.
Oh, that's nice, because that means as long as I got the gold, I can add what I need, and it's all available. To get 3rd or higher, we have to like access a rarer spell book that has everything in it, essentially. So like that's like a quest option for us.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess I also do. Like, I do it because none of my players care for that. But if I have someone who's like, no, I really want to like play like a wizard, like full out, I want to do the full deep wizard experience. I want to search for my spells and not, I would absolutely adjust that rule and say, okay, let's dive into this. And I would take a similar approach like Cheeky does.
Yeah.
To say, here, like you have these low level spells readily available, but you want something higher. Well, let's make a little mini quest out of it.
Yeah. My player's worry was that, well, if I have to pay all this money to put all these spells in and like there's no guarantee I'm going to find them, I had to like stop them there. I'm like, look, if you choose to play a wizard, I will adjust what happens in the game to not be so unforgiving to you, right? I played wizards where the DMs just forgot that I have to add spells to my book and just never gave me anything. I played that. That sucks. I would not put that on you because I like wizards. I would allow you to find spell books and scrolls and things. And we even worked something out where we basically halved the gold costs across the board to add spells. So now Savant halves it again, so you're paying a quarter of what you would normally pay, but like everything else is halved, just straight up. Availability is still kind of up in the air, but at least the gold cost is going to like eat all of their gold away, you know?
Yeah. No, that's a good idea.
So there's that. The second thing was intelligence proficiencies, because if you remember in 3.5, the higher intelligence you have, the more skills you can get.
Yep.
So in this, I wanted to reward people for having a higher intelligence, even if they are not a wizard, right? Because like no one puts their intelligence higher if they're not an intelligence-based class. So I wanted to give people the option, if they went up to 13 intelligence, they can get an extra proficiency in either a lore skill like religion, arcana, nature or history, a language of their choice, a gaming set, an instrument, a toolkit, or artisan's tools based on either 1 more for 13, 2 more for 17, and if they max it out, they get 3 more. And these scores work retroactively. So like if you're at 12 intelligence and you have to do an ability score increase and you have like an extra point, you're like, I'll just put in intelligence. You get a skill in one of these things. Or proficiency.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That way it's rewarded for having good intelligence. I feel like...
And it makes perfect sense. Like, if you are intelligent, you should have these skills. That makes perfect sense.
Yeah, and then imagine an arcane trickster rogue with this variant rule. Like, crazy good, you know?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's definitely a good one.
Oh, yeah. I think that one's pretty... I think, because these are from 3.5, I figured you'd be, like, on board with that. Flanking I brought back, but because of bounded accuracy, I made it, instead of advantage or anything crazy thing like that, it's just a +1 to attacks on a foe that you're threatening with a melee weapon, as long as an ally is also threatening them with a melee weapon from the opposite side, right? It's a specific rule, but it's one I can easily throw on and just like give yourself a +1. And it applies against the party as well, so I can use it against them. Aha.
Yeah. No, that's good. That's balanced straight up. And it's a shame that 5e did away with a lot of like, you know, like you get like a +1 here or -2 over here and a +3 over there. I think it was actually a really useful tool to balance combat. So I'm glad you're bringing that back into your games.
Yeah, and a +1 isn't going to break anything, you know? Like that's...
Yeah.
It can definitely turn the tides for bounded accuracy, but it's not going to destroy the balance of everything. And it's fun, because then you can think about tactics in battle. And I think I'm going to be using Roll20 for this, so I'm like excited for that too. Okay.
Yeah, good stuff.
Oof, I'll try to blow through the... There's 4 more rules, and then I'll be done talking about this homebrew game I'm doing that I'm obviously very excited for.
Lay them on me.
We got the help action, which is always the thing you can do, but I'm restricting it to you can only give someone the help action if you're proficient with the skill check involved, unless the help offered is something extremely simple, like a general ability check. So if it's like to hold the door, right? I want to give them the help action. Well, yeah, obviously you can do that even if you're a wizard. Like you might, you know, your action's gonna be enough to give advantage to the person who's doing most of the legwork. But like, if someone's like, I want to recall knowledge on trolls, and the rogue who's lived in a city their whole life is like, oh, I want to give the help action. Like, well, do you have proficiency in nature? They're like, no. It's like, well, no, you can't do that because you don't know anything about trolls.
Yeah. That's a good one.
Just to kind of, I want people to use the help action. I just don't want them to abuse it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, that absolutely makes sense. It's like, well, and again, it's thinking about really the character. You know, what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? Play to them.
Yeah, exactly. Slower healing. I'm doing this thing with my hands like an evil dungeon master would.
Yes.
So, when I made the move from Pathfinder 1st edition to 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons, which, again, Pathfinder's basically 3.5, so 3.5 to 5th edition. One of my biggest gripes that I kind of just didn't really care that much about after a while was that after a long rest, you get all your hit points back. I thought that was crazy. It's such a jarring leap to go from Pathfinder where you can take like a full day's, like a 24-hour rest to like get like an expanded healing thing. People can attend to your wounds while you're resting to give you more hit points back. Like there was a system to get your hit points back that made more sense in that system for like realism purposes, quote unquote. And for simplicity, 5th edition did away with that to get right, so you can get right back to adventuring. And for the sake of the game, I understand why they did that. And even though it was sort of like it irked me at first, I was like, what? I got over it. You know, I was like, all right, well, I guess this is fine. This is a survival horror game. And I think that we've gotten a little too complacent with this fast healing system that D&D has given us. And so if we're going to be managing resources and stuff, I want to slow the healing down. So the way that I did this for 5th edition, because they have the short and the long rests, which are different. It's like a completely different mechanic than what 3.5 had, right?
Yeah.
In order to heal on either of these rests, you spend a hit die. Now, if you're doing a short rest, you spend up to your level divided by 3 hit die during that rest, no more. Which means if you're level 2, like they are, the minimum you can spend is 1 hit die. They are not going to be able to spend 2 hit die on a short rest until they get to level 6.
Yeah.
So the idea is obviously like you're only resting an hour. You're going to get a few hit points back for as you're like catching your breath, spending a hit die, but you are limited by how powerful you are, right?
Yeah.
There's no limit on a long rest, though. If you are doing a long rest, you could spend all your hit die and maybe get all your hit points back, right? But if you run out before your long rest, or any rest anyway, you can't heal via resting. So even if you rest, if you're out of hit die, you just can't... Resting isn't going to heal you, essentially.
Oh. So when do you get your hit die back then?
Half rounded up of your hit die are replenished by the end of a long rest. So once you complete a long rest, you can then add half rounded up of your hit die back.
Okay.
And you can follow up consecutive rests together if you need to. So let's say one long rest isn't cutting it. Maybe you need more than 8 hours to get back on your feet after you broke a leg or some shit like that, right?
Yeah.
Sure, chain them together if you have to. If you're in a safe space like a town. Like, I want it so that injuries feel like they stick with you a little bit longer. And the fact that they have a cleric in the group, that person's going to be like the clutch person. They're going to be like a god in this land, healing people who it would normally take them like a week to heal an injury. Snap your fingers, have 5 hit points. That's all my hit points. Thank you, sir.
Absolutely. Oh, I really love that. I might adopt that for my games, to be honest, because it's just a touch more realistic without being a slog. I really like that.
You hear that, folks? Felix approved of my slow healing mechanic.
Oh god, the Felix approved stamp on it. I'm sorry for everybody who's gonna adopt this and say, Felix, why?
I'm gonna put a gold seal of approval on this on the screen. Just like, So here's my other 2 ones. This also applies to the like healing type of thing, right? So we've got slower healing. So already this game has the homebrew rules that are going to make things a little bit, potentially more difficult for some, easier for others. I mean, if you're like a fighter who uses flanking, right? Getting that +1 on attacks and being tactical might help. Hey, and if you put some stuff into intelligence, getting those extra skills, that could be super helpful. That could come in clutch. Here's something that's going to maybe hurt. Lingering injuries.
Yes, I was hoping you're going to say that next.
All right, though here's how I've done it. If you are reduced to 0 hit points and fall unconscious due to a critical hit or... Oh, wait a second. Hold on. Let me back up. We know that that's coming, but let's back up to the one before it because there's context here that I have to give. So we know lingering injuries is going to be a thing. I'll explain that in a second. But what's also a thing is the staggered condition. So in Pathfinder, and I don't know if they had this in 3.5, but sometimes if you were brought to 0 hit points exactly, you could still move about and act in combat. But you had a bunch of penalties put on you. And if you did anything that exerted yourself too much, you would go back to dying.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a 3.5 thing for sure.
Mm-hmm. I like this because I don't think it makes a lot of sense that if you get brought to 0, that you just immediately are unconscious, right? Mm-hmm. Like, why can't you be dying and conscious while dying? I feel like that should be a thing.
Yeah, and it makes for those good, like, what are your last words character moments.
Yes, we never get to have those moments unless, like, the DM's cool, like, what do you say as you die? Like... Yeah. So the staggered condition, the way it works is if you are brought through damage or whatever, through damage, I should say, to 0 hit points exactly, or to a negative amount that is equal to or less than your constitution modifier. So basically you have like a little buffer window underneath the 0 equal to your con mod. Then you're not unconscious and you're not dying. Instead, you get the staggered condition. And while staggered, your speed is halved. Your attack rolls, ability checks, and saving throws are all going to be made with disadvantage. Attack rolls against you are going to be made with advantage. Mm-hmm. And if you make an attack, cast a spell, or use the dash or dodge actions, and if your hit points remain at 0 by the end of that turn, you fall unconscious and are dying, like normal.
Yeah.
Also, any strenuous movement, like jumping, swimming, or climbing, might also trigger the dying conditions. So, like, if you, like, let's say you get hit with damage, you go to 0 exactly, you're staggered, but you're swimming in the water, right? If you're doing a, like, full breaststroke through the water, or, like, butterfly... You're going to die. Like, you're not going to be able to, like, get through that without going into dying condition, right? But if you're, like, doing a little doggy paddle as you're just sort of, like, or, like, you're holding onto some floating, like, log and just using your legs to sort of lazily kick yourself to shore, hey, that might be all right? It's a DM's discretion thing, but it's like, if you're doing too much, that's going to open up wounds or whatever. You lose too much blood, you're just going to pass out.
Yeah, but I like that the rule still allows for it to happen. You still have the option that you are able to cast the spell, because it makes for those good moments of just like, I'm going to throw you like one last help and then I'm dead now.
Yeah, and then you're dying. Exactly. Or you can also if you're a healer or if you have healing magic, you can heal yourself And like I worded it, if your HP remains at 0 by the end of the turn, you fall unconscious dying. So basically, if you heal yourself and you got positive hit points, you're no longer staggered and you're not going to be dying. Even though you used an action to cast a spell or whatever. Like, you're fine.
Yeah.
There's some other stuff that could apply to too that I'm excited to see. All right, last thing, and I swear to God I'll let you talk. I'm so sorry.
No, it's good. I like this.
I've been meaning to like bounce these ideas off of somebody. But the last one is I bounced them off of my players and they seem to be all right with it. But like another person who's like not involved is like a DM. The lingering injuries are if you're hit, you fall to 0 hit points and unconscious due to either a critical hit or you took damage equal to half your hit point maximum or more from one source, whether you fall unconscious or not. Basically, if someone deals a huge blow to you that deals half your hit point maximum from one source, then you got to make a DC 30 minus your character level Constitution saving throw. So,
okay.
At level 2, the DC is 28. At level 9, the DC is 21. Right? So, like, DC lowers the more powerful you get, the more you're able to withstand and shrug off these potentially deadly lingering injuries, right? Because you become more experienced and powerful as an adventurer. It's a con save, too. So, if you succeed, you play as normal, nothing happens, no lingering injury. So, better Constitution means you're not going to have as many of these. But if you fail and are conscious, for example, if you took half your hit point maximum of damage, but you didn't fall unconscious, and you failed your con save, you're stunned until the end of your next turn, reeling from the pain of the injury. No, you don't have to, you're just stunned, right?
Yeah.
But if you had fallen unconscious and fail your Constitution saving throw, you gain a lingering injury rolled on a table, essentially. So I'm gonna, if you don't mind, I'm gonna send you the link.
Yeah, send it to me.
This is cool because it's lingering injuries by damage type.
Oh, good.
Yeah, right? And you roll on the table. So let's just look at bludgeoning force. We'll keep it simple, right?
All right.
If you roll a 17 through a 20, you get a broken nose. Your broken nose is painful, but doesn't have any adverse effect. Any magical healing mends your nose, although it may heal crooked if it is crooked when the healing is applied. That's it.
Sure.
It's a flavor thing only if you roll high on the D20. 14 through 16 gets you severe bruising. You suffer severe bruising over an extensive portion of your anatomy. Anytime you suffer bludgeoning or force damage, you suffer an additional point of that damage. The bruising heals if you receive magical healing. Alternatively, it heals on its own in 2 weeks, it says. I might change that. Basically, anything that says it heals in this amount of time, I might just change that to a shorter amount of time for the sake of the game. But
yeah,
on the bottom of the list for bludgeoning force, it says if you roll a nat 1, it's a brain injury. You have suffered a brain injury. You have disadvantage on intelligence, wisdom, and charisma checks, as well as intelligence, wisdom, and charisma saves. If you fail a saving throw against bludgeoning damage, force damage, or psychic damage, you are also stunned until the end of your next turn. Magic such as the regenerate spell can restore your full brain function, right?
Oof.
So, yeah, pretty nasty. You can recover from it, but it's a bad penalty and can make things, the stakes can get high, right? If people are accruing a lot of these. But luckily, again, they got a cleric on the team. So a lot of the stuff they're going to be able to repair without needing to worry about it. It's going to be those low rolls that are going to be really scary, you know?
Mm-hmm. God, I mean, this is a yoink. Taking this, using it. Absolutely. Yeah. This is great.
I mean, and plus everyone can read it. I've given all these resources I've given to my players, said, this is what you have to expect in this game. Don't feel like I'm coming at you, like T-boning you, you know, like, and coming at you from the side, like you didn't expect this to happen. Like, this is a part of the thing, you know. I don't want people to feel like I'm being unfair or anything. This is like the sort of scary element to adventuring. Like, you could die. And I also told people, like, look, also maybe have another character idea, like, on the back burner that you can go with if the worst were to happen, because
every character needs a sibling, damn it.
Yeah, I just don't want to, like, I get very attached to my characters and I understand how bad it can feel when your character dies, and I don't want to kill people flippantly. Right? I want people to be able to fulfill the desires they have for their character and like tell a compelling narrative with that character before something like death were to occur. But sometimes you roll 3 nat 1s in a row or something, you know, like stuff happens and I can't control the will of the dice. So I just want people to be aware that this is going to make things a little harder and that they should be ready for the worst in case it is to happen, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah. But it's nice to just kind of tell your players like, hey, this is what you're in for. So make sure you're cool with this before we start. But these rules are really nice. I like them.
Man, this feels so nice to hear. Anyway, I'm sorry, viewers. I hope I helped you out with this too. I know you're really curious about Felix and you want to know more about him and not me talking this whole time. So I'm going to shut up for a bit. And I'm going to go to what I usually do. I'm going to ask you some questions now, Felix, if that's okay. All right.
Yeah, put on the spot. Let's go.
Whew. Also, by the way, do you mind if we talk for more than an hour? Because we're already like 40 minutes in almost.
This is the only thing on my schedule all day, so I've got time.
Awesome. I think everyone's going to love that. And also, I feel still a little guilty.
No, it's fine. Like, this is fun. I love nerding out about D&D and DMing stuff. Like, it's totally fine. And I've got some sweet lingering injury rules out of it, so yeah.
Hell yeah. So, I want to know some Felix lore. First of all, I know some stuff about you based on just stuff like hanging out with Dingo from time to time. She's mentioned a few things, but I kind of want to know, like, you were not born in Canada, right? You moved here with your family?
That's right. I'm actually, so I'm born in Germany and I moved to Canada when I was 13. So I came into like grade 8 in Canada.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was quite the adventure. Moving continents.
For sure. And I imagine you adjusted well. It seems like you have kind of made a life in Canada. Do you like plan on, I guess I wonder, have you visited Germany that much since, or?
Only once. Like, I guess the first and foremost I should say, I love Canada. I'm here to stay. I'm actually working on my dual citizenship at the moment. But, nice. So I visited Germany once just to visit family over there and some old friends. And just kind of reaffirm my decision of like, Germany's great, but I'm definitely going to stay in Canada. I just like it a lot better here. Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of challenges that came with it. I mean, luckily, I'm an extrovert, so I was able to make friends pretty quickly. And when you move to another country, the language barrier is not that bad. It only lasts for about, I don't know, like a month to a year, depending on what kind of person you are. Because being submersed in another language, you pick it up real quick. I mean, I knew all the swears from my classmates in the first day. Like, it's like, do you know what shit means? And it's like, no, I don't know what it means. Tell me. Of course I know what it means. I had English in Germany.
Right. That's also something. You studied English before you came to Canada, so you already had a bit of a jumping off platform, and you were young. So like picking it up was probably a lot easier than it would be like later in life, I imagine.
Definitely. It's funny though, because when I was learning English in Germany, where it's a mandatory subject starting grade 5, when the year I left Germany and moved to Canada, my grade in English was a C-. So I wasn't exactly confident in my language abilities, but it changed pretty quick once I moved.
Yeah, I lived in China for 2 years, and we had like 10 weeks of intensive language training. And then before that, I had taken classes in college. And even then, that barrier was so hard to get past. Like,
oh, I imagine.
Yeah, I've had to have like drunk conversations in taxis with taxi drivers who want to know everything about me and where I'm from and stuff in Chinese. Ooh. And do my best to like not sound like a complete idiot and make an ass of myself. And I don't know how successful I was, but man.
But I mean, generally when you give it like your best shot as a foreigner, typically people appreciate it. You know, they're not going to make fun of you.
Yeah. And also they weren't speaking German to you. So you there wasn't much of your sanctuary was probably like your home, right? Like going home and talking to your parents and stuff. Like, you could then speak German there. But like if you're spending 8 hours a day with a bunch of English-speaking kids, you're going to have to pick it up because it's just going to feel crazy not to, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, like I said, I'm extroverted. I wanted to make friends and hear all the stuff that, well, they were talking about behind my back, probably. You know, I wanted to know.
I imagine you were probably well-liked.
It was fun to be the tall German kid. Because, you know, in Germany in school, when you get a new kid, it's like, oh, the new kid. You know, and here in Canada, it's like, holy shit, it's the new kid. Let's hang out with him. You know, it's a totally different vibe here.
Well, also, you're like a foreign exchange student, except you're here to stay, sort of. So it's like more exciting because it's not just like a new kid from Canada. It's a new kid from across the Atlantic Ocean, you know?
Yeah, I'm considered like exotic goods in the classroom. Yeah, it was fun to have a lot of people to say like, "Hey, do you want to hang out? Hey, do you want to hang out?" And oh god, I mean, I was extroverted, but I was also damn shy about it because it's just like there's a whole lot of language I don't understand.
Yeah, and you're worried about being judged too. Like you're like you said, you wanted to make friends as a kid. It's sort of terrible. I moved from just one elementary school to another from like 2nd to 3rd grade, and I had some friends in 2nd grade. I lost everything in 3rd grade, and I barely made like 2 friends by the end of the year. Yeah, and like I was very much not extroverted, so it's like that move pretty much wrecked me. I can't imagine for introverts, essentially, like when they make a move like that, especially when it's like it's such a huge transition. But
it is a huge transition, and it's not without its downfalls. I mean, as much as I like my life here more, there are some mental challenges too. Like to this day, and honestly, like this is the year when I'm really starting to just kind of say, like I'm like to tackle this problem. To this day, I feel like an outsider. You know, it's just like yeah, you know, they're just being nice to me, or like, you know, they probably don't really like me that much, which is, I know is nonsense because I have genuinely good friends, but I can't help but have that creep into my head sometimes.
Yeah.
So it's tough, extroverted or not. It's a tough thing.
I still feel like some people that I talk to on the regular don't like me that much. Like, it's still like that little voice in the back of my head that's just like, they tolerate your existence because you have mutual interests, or they like you to a point, but they're never going to be best friends with you. And like, even if some of that might be true, it's still like a very poisonous, negative like voice that can kind of creep in.
Yeah, it's tough. And then you just have to, you know, remind yourself of genuinely nice interactions you've had with people. And then it helps.
For sure. Honestly, you being excited to be on this show is a pretty big ego boost. Because it's like,
it's funny because it's an ego boost for me too.
Oh, because you're the guest? Yeah. For sure. Well, okay. Let's keep talking about your origin story. I want to know how did you discover D&D or role playing games? Like, how did that come about?
Okay, oh god, when was that? See, now I wish I could quickly ask Dingo because she's really good at remembering dates, and I can't remember them for shit. But I think it was around should be around grade 10 that we started to play, which would have been in 2010 or around 2009, 2010 when I started playing.
Okay.
And it was just a friend, and they had someone in their family that was playing D&D, and it's like, hey, I got all these books. You guys want to give this a try? And we're just like, isn't that like for nerds or something? Wait, we are nerds. Let's play it.
Wait a second. What am I saying?
Yeah. So we tried it, and it was an absolute disaster because none of us knew what they were doing. Like the DM had no clue, and like we didn't have a clue, and it was just a disaster. But we had so much fun, and we laughed so hard because, you know, it's like you're suddenly given this game, and you get that first reaction of like, wait, I can do this? I can do anything? And you get that delightful power trip with every player, and of course the DM too, and as you can just explore. But like first session, I think we started PvP within like the first 10 minutes, and then a single goblin killed all of us, and we had to have like a DMPC step in and save us. It was just a shit show.
Oh,
but
God.
We liked it, and most of our friend group stuck with it, and we just kept playing because we're just like, hey, you want to do another one, Sick? Yeah, I'm down for another one. Let's go play another one.
Yeah, because there's always that prospect of a better time in the next one, like especially if the one that you played was a bit disappointing. It's like the fact that role playing appeals to that sense of wonder and like I guess like this desire to like oh, excuse me, too much coffee. This desire to like tell a good story. When the story is, it's like when you watch a bad show and you're like, that show sucked. You don't stop watching shows. Mm-hmm. You want to watch a better show because you want to like scratch that itch of, I want a good story to sink my teeth into. And what's intoxicating about role playing, right, is like you get to direct the story. Like you are a character, you make the decisions and change the course of where it goes. Yeah.
And it's also random. It's not like writing a novel where you have to make all these perfect decisions. Like, no, you can have this amazing, you describe this amazing front flip backstab move, and it's like that one. Mm-hmm. Like, yeah, there you go. Work with it.
Yeah.
It throws off your pretty polished game and brings just a little bit more realism and chance into it, which keeps you on your toes.
Honestly, I think one of the ways I've described it in the past, I haven't done this in a while, but essentially, if you remember when you were a kid and you used to play pretend with other kids, and like maybe cops and robbers, and someone would be like, bang, bang, you're dead. And the other person's like, no, I'm not. And then you have like a fight about, I shot you. No, you didn't. I dodged it. I did this or whatever. So the cool thing about D&D is it's literally that, but you have a rule system everyone respects. And then you've got the randomness of the dice that allows it so that nobody gets favoritism. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
At least if you have a good DM who's like impartial, no one should be getting favoritism. It's just the dice fall where they may,
Yeah. Heart of the dice. Yeah. And also for me, D&D didn't like. There's of course the itch of just having an adventure and telling a good story, but the thing is, my dream since I've been like right at the same time. I mean, since I was like 15 or so, I've always wanted to make video games. I was just like, yeah, there's no doubt in my mind. This is going to be my calling. I want to make video games absolutely when I get older. And D&D comes along and it's just like, hey, you can make video games without all that really difficult work that you haven't learned yet, and you can kind of just practice early, You can tell a good story, you can make mechanics and a world, and it's just like, oh, yes, let's go. So it's itching that game dev itch, because I still get to be creative, and you still have to balance combat, you still have to design encounters and monsters, so you get to do all the fun stuff.
There's still plenty of stuff and prep work you can do to make the game feel immersive. Like, we're gonna this game I was describing, the Curse of Strahd one, we're gonna be doing our first session when we all meet up later in, let's see, wow, holy crap, that's actually only like a couple weeks away from the recording of this. That's kind of scary. But we're going to be doing our first session in person. So, like, of course I bought electric candles that I could change the color of for the occasion. And of course I'm going to be, like, printing out maps and stuff. Like, was there even a question of that, right?
Yeah.
It's not like it's not work. It's just I don't have to go to college for 6 years to learn how to code.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's I guess the key word is accessibility. Everyone that has imagination can play this game. And as long as you enjoy it, that's all you got to do. There's no requirements. You don't, like, the math is doable as long as you know your basic pluses and minuses. You don't have to be the genius, and you don't have to know all this knowledge of like coding and art and stuff. Not that it doesn't help you. I mean, obviously making art for D&D is super helpful. But
yeah, I also want to say too, like, I play with some people who just aren't good with the math portion. They like their head starts to spin with that stuff, even if it is like relatively simple, because it's not a context that they're like used to. It's not like making change or like doing something that affects their some people, like, essentially, I'm appealing to people who are a bit neurodivergent, maybe, who, like, maybe aren't very good at mathematics, or, like, they are okay at it, but they're slow, and they can't, like, on the fly come up with, like, these calculations. Totally fine. I think that to hook people like that, focusing on the story element and the choose your own adventure and the camaraderie and social elements, like, that's like the key for that.
Yep.
And then there's also just, and this is a sad thing, but there are some people who just aren't gonna be into it.
Oh yeah.
I remember I was working as not a bartender. Wow. This person was a bartender and I was a server, and they were asking, because I was talking about Dungeons and Dragons to another coworker, and they were asking, like, what it's about. And I'm like, it's a really fun social game that you play with friends, where essentially you tell a collaborative story together. And in order to kind of keep a sense of fairness, you use dice to determine the outcome, to make sure that, like, you know, no one's really getting favoritism. And the fantasy is generally fantasy, but it can be also like sci-fi or whatever you want it to be. And they gave me this look. I felt like that was a very, you know, bare bones, very succinct, like, description.
That is the best pitch for D&D I've heard.
Yeah, without getting too into it, right? And they gave me this look of, like, what? And I'm like, okay, that's a bad sign. And so I was like, let me put it another way. It's kind of like watching a show on TV, right? And the show can be whatever your group of friends want it to be. It can be like a sitcom, or it could be like Game of Thrones. It could be super, you know, gritty and dramatic, or however you want. But essentially, you and your friends play the characters in the show that you get to make and choose for yourself and interact with everybody else as your characters. And then one person is sort of like the director and the extras and, like, the villains. They get to play everybody else. They sort of, like, kind of run the world. And every week is like an episode, right? And every arc story is like a season. So you meet up with friends to kind of act out the show. And I thought, hey, man, if that first one didn't get them, that second one was pretty good.
That's got to get them.
No, they were like, that sounds weird. I'm like, I guess it's just not for you then. But I have a lot of fun playing it. And if you ever have the chance, you should honestly consider giving it a shot. It's easier to understand if you're there in person.
Yeah.
And I hope that she does give it a shot at some point. But man, she was like looking at me like I was speaking a different language. And I'm like,
no.
I don't know, like, how better I could make it. But maybe, you know, you also, I guess, have to accept some people just aren't going to be into it. And that's okay.
Yeah, it is okay. I mean, I gotta commend you. That is one hell of an awesome way to explain D&D to someone who has no idea about it. Well done. But
I definitely got the other person I was talking to interested.
Yeah.
So that was kind of nice.
The thing is also, there is some people, and I've only met very few of them, but there is some people who genuinely have no imagination. And that's not to say that they suck or something, but it's just, like, they don't have the interest or the capacity to think of something from scratch like that. They just can't do it. Yeah,
you know what? I think Dingo told me about this person you might be referencing, actually.
Oh.
Yes, maybe. If I'm not completely mistaken and just making that up. But you know, no shade on people who operate like that. Everyone's got a different sort of look. I'm not into rock climbing. I'm not going to say that rock climbing's I'll never do it and that it's not for me ever. It's just more like it doesn't really appeal to me. And if someone who is into rock climbing gives me a really solid pitch and I'm still kind of like, doesn't sound for me, that doesn't mean I think that they're stupid for liking rock climbing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like, same for people who just don't feel like it's for them. It's like, that's okay. You know, your strengths are in other areas and your interests are in other areas, and that's fine.
Yeah, totally. Also, I'm pretty sure Dingo probably told you this, but talking about, you know, oh yeah, you know, sometimes you have to get people who aren't so strong in the numbers into the game. When we first started playing D&D, Dingo, well, not to say she hated it, but she really didn't like it because we played 3.5 to its full mathematical glory. And that was not her jam at all.
Yeah.
So we actually got her into it way later when we started to go heavier on story. And she's just like, hold up. This is awesome.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's crazy the transformation it takes, because when I started playing, my first character, I made an animation about, and he, like, I didn't know what I was doing. I looked at cleric because my friends said they needed a cleric for the group. I was like, okay. And I looked at the domains, and there was like a storm domain or tempest domain, essentially, but for like, 3.5. I was like, oh, this seems kind of cool. And I took that, and I was so low level that there was actually nothing in that domain that I could use right away that was like cool. So I was sort of like this uninspired character. And you can even hear in the animation, I made the decision to make the character that I played voiced just by my normal voice, because I didn't know who this character was or how to play them. They basically had almost no backstory that I remember. And I was like, I wasn't feeling it. So when they died, it was a blessing, because I learned more about the game in the interim, and I learned you can be a necromancer. And I was like, now that calls to me. I feel like so many cool stories can be told about a character who can raise the dead. And like, I was kind of low-key obsessed, still low-key obsessed about it. So my next character was a cleric, but with the like a subclass of Undead Lord. And in Pathfinder, getting your first like undead minion is way easier than it is in 5th edition. 5th edition, it's like you have to wait until you're like level 5 to get Animate Dead. Yeah. And then you have to keep casting Animate Dead to keep control over it. Where it's like at 3rd level, I had a class feature for my Undead Lord where I could have a corpse companion, kind of like an animal companion, but it's a zombie or skeleton. And its strength is based on my level. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, so immediately I can do it. And Animate Dead is a 2nd level spell in that game. So it's like I could raise a couple skeletons right out the gate. So that's what I did. Like when I was introduced to the rest of the party, I had I had a skeleton corpse companion, and then I had another skeleton I had used Animate Dead on. And I've got like this, Doctor Strange cowl. I've got the facial hair too. I'm wielding a big ass scythe. I look evil as fuck. And I'm like, hey, I don't mean no harm. I'm actually on the run from some goblins. I actually like to help you guys escape from here if that's okay. And it was, we became friends after that.
Oh, that's a good story.
Yeah, but like then I got into the rules, right? So like when you're talking about like Dingo wasn't into like the rules or the math of it until like the story became like enrapturing enough, and then she was like, oh, this is fucking tight, right?
Yeah.
That same happened to me. Same thing. Then I was like looking up feats. I was looking up what I could do, like the trajectory of my character, like what could I do in the next level up that might make my character even more effective? Like I got super into the optimization aspects of it because I wanted my character to do well. And also my character had really abysmal stats. We rolled for stats and I rolled kind of low. So I was like, I gotta make sure my character don't die,
Yeah. You just start reading through all the books and just making sure like you plan your build out like for the next 5 to 10 levels.
For sure. Now I do that on the regular for 5th edition because it's an easier system by the numbers. So like I'll come up with an idea, and my knowledge of different classes and how to multi-class with them, I'll think, could I make a character that can see in the dark better than any other character in the game?
Yes,
and I'm like,
challenge builds.
Yeah. Where it's like, am I trying to break the game? Not really, but I'm trying to do some janky shit that makes my character really funny or cool in a specific way, right? So like, I made recently, like for that build, if I were to take a level of Twilight Domain Cleric, you get dark vision up to 300 feet, more than any other character in the game.
Holy shit.
Yeah, and I think you have something called Vigilant Blessing where you can get like advantage on initiative rolls, and you can give that to somebody else. So like that's kind of neat.
Yeah.
I'm like, all right, well that's good, but what else could we do? I look at Gloomstalker Ranger. I'm like, Gloomstalker, either gives you 60 feet of dark vision or extends your existing dark vision by 30 feet. So I'm like, I have 300. I can make it 330. So let's do that. And then Gloomstalker also gives you, basically, Dread Ambusher allows you to be invisible in darkness to any creature that relies on dark vision to see you, which is most creatures who see you in darkness, right? So that is an amazing thing. I can see them, but they can't see me, right? So that's 4 levels that I'd have to dedicate. And then I'm like, well, what else could I do? I'm like, I could keep going in Ranger or keep going in Cleric. But if I really want to be like one with the Knight, maybe I could do Shadow Monk. Because with Shadow Monk, you can teleport in shadows, you can cast Darkness, Pass Without Trace, Silence, and another thing using key points. There's a lot of shadow abilities, and you get really fast movement, and it's also wisdom based. All 3 of these are wisdom based classes. So it's like, that's actually a viable build that works with the mechanics of the game that would allow me to see really well in the dark, be pretty much invisible in darkness, and do a lot of shit just in the dark. The only other thing I would need that I'm like, what if someone casts darkness and I can't see through it? I guess I'll take a feat for the Eldritch Invocation Devil Sight so that I can make sure that no matter what kind of darkness there is, I can goddamn see through it.
Oh, it's so good.
Right? And
I am the darkness.
Right. I could even take Blind Sight as a fighting style as a ranger just to make sure that if anything happens where I need to be able to see someone next to me, I can do it whether they're invisible or not. You know, like there's just that's fun to me. And then the next part is like, now how do I make this make sense? Right? Because this is shenanigans for sure. But it's not overpowered shenanigans. It's more like I'm super good at being in the dark, and that's about all I'm really good at. I'm kind of spread thin on other stuff. I'm not going to outclass the person who just goes straight paladin and smites for 1 billion damage, right? Like, I'm just very good at like one specific thing and kind of like adaptable to different situations. So how do I make that make sense? Then you make a story or a backstory that can kind of incorporate that stuff. And then hopefully if you're playing something like that, the actual story of the game like makes it all sort of come together, right?
Yeah.
But
God,
yeah.
Then you start also adding like flaws, you know, it's like, they have a sun aversion or something like that, or you make them vampiric too. Like you can really play with that.
You can do so much that you can do with that. And I
love that build.
Yeah, it's like, it doesn't like, why would I need all of those darkness sight abilities? Like, why is that necessary? And my response is shrug. I don't know. It's just cool. And they complement each other. Also, I get really high initiative just because of the Vigilant Blessing, and Gloomstalker has a thing where you add your wisdom to your initiative. So like, I can have advantage and wisdom. Both of those, pretty good, you know. Maybe eventually I'll take the alert feat too, just for even higher initiative, and I'll never be surprised. So I'm even more good in the darkness, right?
Yeah. No, that's a fucking rock solid build. I love that. Yeah. I love it also because it's like, it's literally min-maxing in a different way, because you're certainly maxed out in the darkness, but you know, when you're out, I don't know, on the plane of fire or something, or just out in sunlight, it's like, yeah, you know, I'm just kind of a guy. Yeah, that's very alert.
and it's fun too for the it also depends on what game you're playing, right? Because this is someone who's all about the darkness. You're playing what's primarily like 15 or 16 levels of Shadow Monk, which is ninja, and then you've got some wisdom based other classes with the Gloomstalker Ranger and just a Twilight Domain 1 level dip in Cleric. With 4 levels of Ranger and 1 level of Cleric, the way multi-classing goes is because Ranger's a half-caster, every 2 levels gives you another increase in your spell slots. Mm-hmm. One of the cool things about the 3rd increase in spell slots is you go from 2 first-level spells at level 1, 3 first-level spells at level 2. Suddenly, you've got 6 spells at level 3 with 4 first-level and 2 second-level. Like, you double the amount of spell slots you have available, which even later levels, like, that's pretty damn fine, right? And then if I've got key points that allow me to cast other, stealth shit, I'm doing all right.
Yeah, totally. It makes me think of the way you could build out like your character in 3.5, because there was you had the prestige classes, which I really enjoyed.
Oh yeah.
But also the way that there's like feats that have prerequisite feats, so you could actually build up to more powerful abilities after you unlock like 3 other abilities.
Mm-hmm.
I really enjoyed those kind of builds, because then you're really sitting down like, okay, not only am I gonna plan like an interesting character, but at the same time, I want to make sure that over the next 10 levels, I kind of choose the right path for them to get that awesome power that I want. What was it called? Like, I forget the name. I built a Duskblade to just be a what's the name for it? Basically, she would just run up to you, hit you, and then keep sprinting past you. And that's just the way that she would always attack. She kept getting in range and out of range without causing any attacks of opportunity.
She's like Alucard in the season finale for season 2 of Castlevania, where he's just like going past Dracula, doing like these hit and run swipes.
Yeah, exactly. It was hit and run. That's the name. Damn it. So obvious. Yeah, it was hit and run.
Awesome.
It's fun to do those kinds of builds, definitely. But I also just love doing stupid builds where I like to challenge myself. Like, it's like, okay, for example, the 3.5 vanilla paladin, it sucks. Straight up, it sucks. You kind of have like maybe, the first 6 levels, maybe the first 10 levels where you have some really neat abilities, and then it just blows. And in addition to that, for roleplay, during that time, I'd always see like the paladins being kind of like the buzzkill of the party. That'd be like, no rogue, no stealing, swiper, no swiping. And it's just like, okay, well, this is like, it's not fun because the paladin is just being a naysayer. And I'd see that a lot. So my whole thing of like, okay, well, Felix, what character do you want to play? I'm like, I want to play a paladin that doesn't suck. It's like, okay.
Paladin that doesn't suck.
Yeah, or that's not boring, I ended up building, because I suck like that. I actually kept him a pure paladin. I actually didn't multi-class him. Instead, I started building into like different feats and different items. And this is the one that did, it was like during a boss fight. Basically, whenever I fought anything evil, because paladins get like their smite and whatnot, his damage would just go exponentially bigger. And I think eventually, using just vanilla abilities, nothing homebrew, I was able to do like 1,000 damage on the initial strike of an evil creature. And
wow.
Yeah, just straight up vanilla. Like, I tried not to homebrew him too much because I wanted to actually explore the 3.5 paladin, and It's a lot of fun to do those things. Just like, I just call them little challenge builds. Just like, well, let's see if I can, solve this problem, or kind of, can I play this character but with this caveat to it, like that kind of thing.
Yeah. I think that's a fun way to do it, because what you're like you said, it's like a problem that needs to be solved, right?
Yeah.
In some ways. Oh, sorry.
No, I was just saying, and it's not like I'm saying, like, oh, I'm going to set out and, like, fix the paladin in a way. It's more like, no, I just want to kind of see what I can do with it, Yeah.
Like, I've noticed that there are some classes that I don't care for in 5e, because the way that they're built, I've played them and I find them boring because they don't have the options I'm looking for compared to other classes, right? One of my favorites is Wizard, because Wizards get their full casters, right? They get an amazing spell list, and no 2 wizards are going to be the same. You could build wizards out to be completely different. But there is a bit of a trouble that comes with getting to level 3, or level 5 rather, because when you get 3rd level spells, it's almost stupid not to take counterspell and maybe either haste or fly or dispel magic.
Obviously, yeah.
And those are so good that to do anything else feels like you, as a player, it feels wrong, and I don't like it. I don't like the feeling of not taking the best quote unquote spells. Fireball is another one that everyone loves to grab at third level, right?
Yeah.
I have to really kind of center myself and be like, I am going to play a specific concept for Wizard that's not going to be the right quote-unquote way to play Wizard, because that's boring and everybody does that, and I want to be different and do something fun. Same with any sort of like magic fighter type character. Everyone just uses Booming Blade and Green Flame Blade. The bread and butter are those two cantrips. I hate them. I absolutely hate them because there's not really a way to flavor them. I mean, Flame Blade, you could just change the color of the fire, I guess.
Yeah.
You know, Booming Blade is like, I struggle to figure out how am I going to make this thunder damage make sense for like a character. It's a weird spell, right?
Yeah.
So like, I generally just, if I'm going to make a magic fighter, I'm going to do something else. I'm going to like not rely on those because everyone relies on those. I'm going to try to do some other thing. Even if it means that I'm not going to be as effective. Right?
Yeah. I mean, I take something interesting over something effective any day.
Mm-hmm. And I'm not, and I've said this before, but I'm not trying to say that like staple spells are bad. You know, like Counterspell, Fireball, Shield, Magic Missile, like those are all fine because it's kind of easy to flavor them however you want. Magic Missile could literally be anything you want it to be. What are you firing? Are you firing, like if you're a Necromancer, Magic Missile could be like spectral finger bones that like fire out, you know?
Yeah.
Or like Shield can look like anything you need it to look like. You know, Shield is just like, it's like a basic thing that's just good to have, and can be flavored to whatever kind of wizard you're playing, or whatever kind of spellcaster, rather.
Mm-hmm.
I'm on a bit of a tangent here, but I guess what I'm trying to say, to kind of bring it back, is that there are some classes where you are by default not, in my opinion, it's kind of not that great to play unless you do something to make it fun to play. Like,
yeah,
let's look at the Warlock, for example. My first 5e character was a Warlock. He was sort of like a devilish Batman. He wore a mask and he called himself Red. So it was like kind of like a code name. And the reason he did that and he hid his real name was because his family, his wife and child, were kidnapped while he was away and were sacrificed by a cult of worshippers of Asmodeus to their god. He was able to kill the cult. Like he tracked them down to where this vile ritual was happening, killed the cult members as a visage of Asmodeus was summoned, and looked at Red, and who's just a man, and he was just like, "Give me back my wife and daughter." And he's like, "Well, they're mine now. Like they've been given to me, but I am the god of deals. Maybe we can make a deal for their souls to return to you."
Mm-hmm.
And so I became a Warlock of the Fiend, not because I'm a bad dude, but because I want my family returned safely. So I'm forced to do things I don't want to do for Asmodeus because I'm trying to rescue my family. And I know that even though he's a piece of shit, he is a god of law. And so like he will stick to his word if I serve him for a long enough amount of time. But because I don't want people to know it's me, I wear the mask and I go by Red and I'm like a Batman, right?
Yeah.
What a fun concept, right? Like that's a cool story for a character. But then you've got the mechanics of the Warlock class where you only get 2 spells per short rest. And if your DM doesn't give you those short rests, well, you're just casting Eldritch Blast a lot.
Yeah.
And that's kind of all you're doing.
Yeah.
And that's not very fun and gets kind of boring, which is a reason why a lot of people multi-class out of Warlock.
Yeah.
Now, I didn't really know we could do that for my first character, so I was just going straight Warlock, and, I was having more things to do, but it was one of the downsides of that class in particular, where it felt, even though I was in it for the roleplay, I didn't know this system, I couldn't metagame it that hard, like, I was just playing what felt right to play, and I was still underwhelmed by the class.
Yeah, it feels stale.
Yeah. So, I guess the point, this long belabored point I'm making, is that sometimes it's okay to focus on mechanics of something and make it do the most for you as a person, as a player, so that while you're in the game, you have things you can do, even if they're not gonna, like, deal 1,000 damage in one hit, like your cool Duskblade or I'm sorry, your Paladin could do. Having options and things that you're able to do means you don't feel useless. It feels like you have a bit of control over what is around you, and it makes it so that you're satisfied. It's a satisfaction thing, really.
Yeah.
It's being able to have answers for certain things. Doesn't mean you have to do everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I was a Warlock of the Fiend. I didn't really have healing spells. I'm not going to be healing people. And, that's just something I can't really do. But if I really wanted to do that, I could take the healer feat or, get just proficiency in healer's kits or something. Like, there were things I could have done. I just decided I wanted to do a different thing, right?
Yeah.
I'm not saying that you have to do everything. I'm just saying that having more than just what your class offers you, especially if it's very limited. Sorcerer's another great example. All those spell slots and no spells to cast.
Yeah.
I absolutely despise what they did to Sorcerer.
Yeah, they did him dirty.
And what makes me even more mad, and I mentioned this in I think the last episode, they released 2 subclasses for Tasha's that give them bonus spells per level up to like 5th level spells.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning they went from 15 spells period to 25 spells. That's not insignificant. And that's not fair to the other subclasses. If you're going to do that for these new classes, you have to give more spells to these other classes. It's not okay to leave them as they are, because why would I ever play anything else if I was going to do a sorcerer? Anyway, sorry. I'm just griping on that, but essentially what I'm saying is that it's okay to do that because sometimes things don't perform well enough to be fun. It's not even well enough to be broken. It's just well enough to be fun for the game,
Yeah. I mean, it should all serve to make the game more fun for everyone. At the end of everything, it's like, that's always the goal. Make people enjoy it.
I think a lot of my homebrew for this next game exists specifically so that people don't feel like they have to multi-class. Like, I released, I think I might have posted it somewhere, maybe in one of our Discord servers, but like, I redid all the sorcerer subclasses to match the power of the new ones that came out.
Ooh. Yeah.
I could send you some of the documents I'm using for my homebrew stuff, just if you want to look them over. Because again, it better still be on the screen, that seal of approval. I just because like I felt like it was a bit of an injustice. So in my game, I offered people, if anyone wanted to play sorcerer, they have access to this this altered. None of them nerf any of the sorcerer classes. They only expand. They give pre-selected spells based on the bloodline to those sorcerers, just like you would for the Aberrant Mind or the Clockwork Soul, right? Same deal. The only one that isn't quite the same was Divine Soul, because you get a whole new spell list with the Divine Soul.
Yeah.
So I gave them one bonus spell, and it was based on the alignment that they chose. So essentially, whatever alignment you chose, you have to stick with that progression. But a lot of that stuff is already on the cleric list, so it's like, it kind of takes some of the weight off of you having to pick the best cleric spells. Like, you get a few just from the alignment that you picked.
Yeah.
I felt like that was fair.
Yeah.
And I just wish they would do that. And
in the official.
5e.
Yeah. I feel like I should one day just do a game, just a one shot, and I'll just get like 5 people to just play all sorcerers, and I'll give them, like, we'll play with my homebrew rules in 3.5 of like, here's the entire spell list, go have fun. We're just gonna see the chaos that unfolds.
I want to play a game DM by you, because it sounds like it's a lot of fun and also very lethal, which is both. That's both of the things I really like.
Yeah. No, it's fair and it's deadly, and people that I've been playing with so far really dig it because I'm not unfair. You know, I like to subvert expectations, but I don't like to bitch slap you across the face and you not knowing why it happened.
Yeah, but, for sure.
If we play a game together in 3.5, what I'll do is I'll send you my secret app that I made for it. I made my own spell app that has like, actually, let me check. I have.
Are you serious? You just said that you're like, oh, I don't want to code and make video games, so I went into this, and then you learned to make an app?
Oh, no. Sorry, when I said that is like, I can just start D&D early while I learn to code. Actually, I'm a pretty damn good coder. No, and this app, I just double checked. I have 4,700 3.5 spells in here. They're of every single supplement that's ever been made for 3.5.
Oh, for the official supplements that came out for 3.5.
Oh, no. Well, actually, yeah, I think all the official ones, or at least the ones that are kind of like vetted. So all of those that are kind of commonly accepted are in here. And nice. I can't publish it because I'm breaking 50 copyrights at once if I do that. So I just use it for myself.
It's personal use only.
Very personal app, but I don't mind you taking a look at it and just kind of enjoy the chaos that's contained within.
I would love to take a look at that. Does it have a good search function?
Yeah, it does. I mean, fairly good. But it lets you find your spells pretty quickly. Because I hate it. Like, I always gripe when I have casters at the table and then they sit there for 10 minutes on their turn trying to figure out a spell to cast. And it's like, no, we got to speed that up.
For sure. Yeah. When I played in person, I used to have index cards that would write stuff down. Especially when I was a necromancer, too, because I was like, I appreciate the fact that my DM is allowing me to have a posse of skeletons follow us around everywhere. I will do him the good turn of writing down the statistics of my skeletons on spell card or on index cards, so he doesn't have to keep track of any of that shit. That it's on me, and I can do my resource management myself. The only thing he has to do is let me know if I'm able to raise something, like if it's weak enough that I could raise or something like that. Yeah. Same thing with spells that I commonly use. I'll have bookmarked, so that I can quickly get back to it. In Discord, a lot of servers that I'm in have apps or bots that you can do spell searches on.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, there was one when I was playing Curse of Strahd. There was one called Avrae, Avrae, and it had everything from core base rules to Xanathar's Guide, which came out during that time.
Mm.
It was so useful. We could look up anything, and then D&D Beyond caught wind of it and put the kibosh on that, and now it's it's good for rolling dice, but not much else. Yeah,
damn.
It's a bummer. Look, Wizards, if you're listening, I'm not trying to speak ill of your system of D&D Beyond. That's fine. I'm sad because I didn't have money for it at the time. And that's why I'm sad. That's all.
Yeah.
You're doing is fine. Sponsor me, please.
Sponsor, please.
Sponsor, please.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, I really went on a rant there.
No, it's good though. Get it all out.
I'm looking at this coffee like you are ruining this interview. You are making me talk too much. Let me ask a little bit more, because I know people want to hear more about you, and obviously there's questions about the Fool's Gold campaign that we could ask, but I think you've answered a lot already. You've had Q&As in the past.
Yeah, there's always new questions that pop up. I try to answer them as I can without obvious spoilers, at least.
Right. I feel like asking too much would just get into spoiler territory. So I'm gonna not do that. I'm gonna say if people want to ask you questions about that, they should like, I don't know, maybe tag you on Twitter and maybe you'll get back to them. Maybe you won't. Maybe you're too busy. I don't know.
Or I guess if you hang out on the Twitch stream, sorry, I don't stream often, but when you do, I'm always happy to talk about it too.
Yes. Let's mention that real quick. You are on Twitch. What is your Twitch handle again?
Twitch handle is Final Boss Felix, and currently I stream every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Pacific, and sometimes I do an extra stream or so, but it just depends on the schedule. Writing a campaign setting while running a business is taking a lot of time out of me.
Yes, I imagine that's a lot, and you're working on you got stuff behind the curtain that you're working on, and you got to stream every Tuesday, and you're like. Your family has a business too that you're like helping run.
Yep.
So that's a lot to have on one's plate.
Yeah. But I like to be busy.
Here's a question. How do you manage your time? Like like what are some tricks? Because I have trouble with time management. I have like ADHD and I get distracted kind of easy. So like what would you say like is a tip that you could give people to help like consolidate time?
Yeah,
better?
I mean, that's a big topic. And honestly, I'm still trying to learn. I'm trying to get a bit better. My first step was just blocking distractions on my computer. So like, God, I waste sometimes like 3 hours just reading bullshit on Reddit. And it's just like, what am I doing with my life? And so I blocked like Reddit, blocking Twitter sometimes. And like, I don't go on Facebook anymore, and YouTube. Just kind of blocking your obvious distractions can help you focus. And otherwise, I mean, just kind of figure out what your priorities are and then set some time aside for them. You know, if you want to work out, well, then make sure you like, you know, do it at the same time every week. So you don't think like, when am I going to do this? I don't know. Sometime.
Yeah.
So it's just making a schedule that you yourself are actually really happy with, that makes you want to stick with it.
Yeah, that I think that's very good advice. I think it's a little hard for some, including myself, just because.
Me too.
I know that like like my schedule's always in flux. Like I haven't worked a big boy job in quite some time. And so I'm at home working on commissions, be it music or art, or I'm trying to work on animations. I'm coming to the end of a burnout that I've been experiencing with Peace Guild animation and stuff by trying to like do other animations, like short, easy ones that I can kind of get out quickly. And even with all that stuff, I still feel like I'm juggling so much. It's like every day I feel different. Like even if I wanted to schedule something up for a day, sometimes it's just hard to even like, I might have it open in the background, but like you said, getting rid of those distractions on my screen, it can be kind of hard.
Procrastination's a bitch. Yeah. But it is hard. And the easiest thing to help yourself is just, which is not everybody can do this, but just try to work on stuff you really like, because it's, you know, it's easier to schedule something you love than to schedule like shit you really hate on a regular basis.
For sure.
Yeah, but it can be hard. And I don't succeed every day. There are days when I'm just like, I know I need to be writing right now, but brain says no. So I gotta do something else.
Wait, are you telling me you're a human being? What?
What? God, jeez.
I was completely wrong about you. I'm sorry. I'm gonna have to end this podcast right now.
Yeah. We're gonna edit this out, okay?
No. But no, it can be difficult. I guess I kind of marvel because you say it's a facade, but it isn't. Don't be too modest. Like you've got your shit together, and maybe a lot of that's probably a little bit of luck, you know, with just like your home life situation and things like that. But like, I'm not gonna say that you didn't work for what you have. Like it seems like you work very hard.
I do,
and I really admire that you can kind of keep it together, even if you have your few off days. Like you're able to kind of get this shit going and like turn it into something that like benefits you in some way.
Yeah. And I mean, it is important, like you said, to remember that everybody's human. You know, I don't care if you're some goddamn superhuman. You're going to have days when you're just like, nah, it's a couch day today. We're not doing shit. And for me, I find that it's a fucking slog to try to get on top of your shit. Like especially if you've been like in a depression, or you know, if in your opinion you don't quite have your life together to the way you like it, getting on top of it is really hard. But once you're there, it's a lot easier to stay there and not let it get out of hand again than to, you know, get up there and then just letting it go, and then you have to climb up again. Like, it's kind of like saying once you're on top of your bills, it's easier to keep going. It's similar to that. But for me, sure. I enjoy it. It's really the long and short of it. I surround myself with work I enjoy doing, and work that I hate doing. I try to make the best of it, get through it, and then, you know, if I can avoid it, I don't have to do it again. And that works. At least for me. I mean, I'm sure this doesn't work for everybody, but it works for me to keep everything going. And I, like, all of my stuff is in a big calendar, and I schedule my times. You know, when am I doing this? When am I doing this other thing? Including relaxing time. You know, you should put it in your calendar when this is like, do not fucking talk to me time. This is now. This is my time. So.
Yeah. I've been trying to get better about that. I think a lot of the struggles I have, besides the fact that, you know, ADHD just makes it easy to get distracted, is like, there are so many things I want to do and not enough hours in the day and not enough attention span to devote myself to only one thing for a period of time that's meaningful, you know?
Yeah. It's
like, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, like, when people are like, there's not enough hours in the day, I would argue, many times, I would argue against it, unless you have external influences like, oh, you know, you're like a single mother with 3 children, where it's like, oh, you know what? I get it. There is not enough hours in the day for you. Mm-hmm. But you're right. It's the attention that can be really difficult to focus. And I mean, some people, they can't do it without some kind of meditation or medication. Like it depends. You have to see, like, what's your kryptonite and how can you get over it, if even?
Yeah. I think a lot of it is the thing that it's kind of like a double-edged sword. I think Dungeons and Dragons is a big source of distraction for me.
I mean,
personally,
this is coming from the guy who's playing 5 games at the moment. Yes, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. It's a bit of a distraction. And like, the thing is, a lot of this is the only way that I keep in contact with certain groups of friends.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a part of me that really loathes to lose touch with these folks, because, you know, if I stop playing in these games, like, when am I going to speak to them again? Right?
Yeah. Like,
they might not be otherwise very talkative people, and maybe introverts themselves and don't reach out that often. And so it sucks, because I don't want to give up on friendships that I've built over the past few years, or many years, depending. Just because I guess it just makes it a little bit difficult, I suppose.
That's fair. Nobody wants to lose friendships.
For sure. But I also think that, like, there's a few games that I could, like, if they end, I might have to make a hard decision and just say, you know what, I'm not playing new games for a bit, and then make it a point to keep in contact with them outside of the game. Like, because that's another thing too, is that a lot of friendships I built over the years were always built on the common denominator of, like, we have a mutual interest.
Yes. You
like Magic the Gathering, I like Magic the Gathering, we are friends now, right?
Yeah.
And that's fun. Like, you can have a lot of fun with that, but it's also kind of shallow. It's like, if that's the only thing keeping us together, then maybe we're not as close of friends as we thought. And I have lost touch with people over the years who I only knew in the context of we were nerds and played Magic together, or we played some other thing together. And, like, personality wise, we really weren't that close. And so I might have to make a hard decision of like, I need to like sever this interest for my own time's sake, but try to keep in touch to see if we have more to this than just our mutual interests, right?
Absolutely. And it's okay to have, like, it's okay to differentiate between good acquaintances and friends. There is a difference, and it is a real difference, and that's okay. Like, it's my parents, when they told me about this, because I kind of had a bit of separation anxiety as a kid of like losing friends was the worst thing in the world for me. You know, I would always blame myself. And it's like, no, they were like, Felix, life is like a train, you know, like sometimes people jump on, they ride with you for 10 stations or 10 years, and then they jump off the train, and then they might come back on the train later, you know, or you meet new people that are like really rocking. And that really helped me to not freak out when that kind of stuff happened.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, it's not our fault. Life is life, and sometimes people stick with you for a long ass time and become really good friends, but it's just as okay to really enjoy a few weeks with this one person and say, all right, man, I'm out. It was a good time. Maybe we'll see each other again sometime. Yeah,
man, what a sobering thing to sort of almost end this podcast on.
Life lessons with Shane and Felix.
Yeah. I honestly, like, this whole podcast was very loosey-goosey and off the cuff. I had no idea, like, where we were going to be going, other than I wanted to run Homebrew stuff by you. But I think this was really fun, and I think we're going to have to kind of wrap up here. But
yeah,
before we do, where can people find you, Felix?
Well, the only social media I am on is on Twitter, at Felix Irnich, and you can also, of course, catch me on Twitch at least once a week on Tuesday, 8 p.m. PST at Final Boss Felix. And yeah, I mean, at the moment, that's the only two places you can find me, because I've been very busy like working on stuff like the Fool's Gold campaign setting, which the Kickstarter is launching on October 12th. And I promise, once that book is done, you guys will hear a lot more from me. It's been taking up all my time, but once it's done, I'm going to be a lot more available, let's say it that way, and more out there.
Hell yeah. October 12th, don't forget, on Kickstarter for the Fool's Gold campaign setting.
Oh yeah.
Hell yeah. Thanks for being on, Felix. It was a joy.
Thanks for having me on. This has been great.